Hey everybody, good to see y'all again. We're gonna do a pretty fun exploratory studio session today. I think we've done a lot of generation on images that have kind of like a singular portrait-esque view, and today we're going to focus a little bit more on kind of like UI UX elements. So the parts and pieces that we might composite together into something that we would use. And this might be, toolbars, inventory menus, quest menus, all that kind of stuff. We can come up with a couple of different things. I've also, I think one element of this that's interesting, this is maybe less so for like video game development, but a similar use case in the notion of like trading card games, board games, creating assets for those types of materials. These are all parts and pieces of, creating these assets that we can reuse and leverage for those creative pursuits. Basically, the stuff that fits around all the pretty pictures that we're going to make, right? So we'll play around with this and kind of go through some ways that we can control the system to generate these types of images for us. And we'll kind of work through a couple of those together. So first things first, we're just going to try to prompt for it. We'll give it a go. We'll try to prompt for some of these things, right? So UI elements, we got to think through like what would be associated with this type of stuff. Let's give ourselves a theme, maybe. One that I'm thinking of is maybe fantasy RPG. Does that sound good? Yeah, someone's got the same idea, like a D&D-esque fantasy RPG type game. And if we were playing one of these types of games, what are some of the UI UX elements that we would think about in building that game? Like what is the interface that we're potentially going to be experiencing? What would we need to create? Those might be some good ideas for us to create some like UI UX elements for that. And then we can really get started with figuring that out. So if we're going for UI UX, how about like a map on the top right, a hotbar at the bottom? Yeah, I think that's like reasonable. So we're gonna test this out. Again, this is exploratory in the sense that like sometimes I've done stuff before, especially if it's like image generation. I know how it's going to work. With UI UX stuff, this is a request that we get from time to time, and it is not something I've done a lot of testing on. And so you get to kind of like maybe watch along as I figure out how might we create UI UX elements. So there will be forewarning, some like I'm sure stumbling around where we generate something that doesn't really fit. And we're just going to figure out, okay, why is it not working? What is the model trying to generate? And how might we guide it towards what we're looking to get? So we'll try UI elements, mini map, UI design, try digital painting, fantasy themes, dark and gritty, steel. How about that? We'll try that. So we're going to generate this. I mean, it would clearly be beneficial if we had a LoRa for this, right? Like obviously, like if we had an embedding and a LoRa, that's going to be one of the easiest ways to get to that. But I'm not going to use a LoRa. This is going to be more fun that way, because then we can really try to figure out how might we prompt for this from the base model. That said, like if you're building a workflow in your team's process for this, using a LoRa is like a no-brainer. Training a LoRa, training in embedding so that you can actually prompt for the different elements that you need is by far going to be the best way to do this, bar none. We're gonna stumble through it without that, because we're gonna figure out like what are the things that it can generate, and if you use a LoRa and an embedding, it will be even better. So we'll try this out. We'll generate our UI elements, mini map, UI design, digital painting, yada yada. I anticipate we're going to get something that doesn't look really great. We don't love the shape or structure of it, and we're going to probably need to jump into the canvas to generate a base image that we can then use to guide the generation process. So that's my anticipation, and we will see. So yeah, now we've got like a big mini map type thing here going. Not really kind of like what I'm looking for. So what is it? What is it doing? It's creating the entire interface. It's creating like everything in the interface, not just the mini map. It obviously has this notion of like a map figured out, but this is more like I'm looking at the map screen maybe, and this is not really what I was looking for. I'm looking for that kind of like mini map in the corner, right? So what I might try, I think I'm going to go in. Still had an image from somebody from the community. If anyone was in the Invoke chat and gave that challenge out, you can see it. I'm maybe going to do a grayish background. And I need to make my opacity all the way opaque. I'm going to do that grayish background, and I'm going to have like a color, and maybe I'll do something like I'm trying to get that like corner of the screen shape. And again, this is just like a rough guide. I'm going to give some darker color in the middle, maybe, just to kind of like suggest that that's like going to be a different part of the element. And I'm going to keep my denoising strength pretty high here. We'll try 0.9, we might go up, and we'll see what this does. Again, this is going to do an image to image on this. And as we've covered in past studio sessions, you know, the image to image process can kind of like reinterpret positionally when we use things like blacks and whites for our shape. We might need to go up a little bit, but I think this is actually pretty good. Look at that, that's nice. So we've got like a nice like ornamented steel thing around a mini map that we could kind of pop in, you know, that dynamic area of the map inside. I think this is like a pretty good start for it. There's obviously some elements that I want to tweak and edit, but this is where the canvas is like a good way to toy around with this, right? So what might I want to change? I probably want to change this bit right here. Maybe this bit right here. Some of this stuff looks like it could be regenerated. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to zoom in now that I've got like the areas that I think need to be edited. I'm going to zoom in so we get like a little bit of a higher resolution here. I can't go that far. And I may take this too. And then I'm going to turn that down a little bit because I don't want to change this too much. I'll give that a shot. It's actually a phenomenal start, right? It's a phenomenal start. I think that looks pretty cool. Honestly, it's pretty cool. I think it looks good. I would take this out and probably just use it. I mean, I'd probably take it into Photoshop if I were going to put this in a game. It's not going to be done by itself. What I would likely do, if my game has a language of some sort, I would probably put runes or something like that in that language around the side and glowing. Danger indicator. Yeah, this could be a danger indicator. You could do like a hue change on this. And so that would be like, are you in danger or not? And that's like a cool, like little visible affordance. That's like a cool idea like that. And then this empty spot in the middle would be kind of like our map as we dynamically move around the world. That's like being filled in. So we'd probably pop that out as a transparency piece. And now we've got like a nice little UI element for the corner. Great, right? Like this is awesome. We love that. And so now we've got like a really cool piece for us to use. I'm going to save that into our gallery. And this is like just a really good base. And I emphasize this over and over again. I wouldn't probably take this and just dump it in the game. It's going to need like a little bit of work. What are the things that I'd probably tweak as somebody that I'm looking at? I mean, I'd probably go in and like fiddle with some of these details and just make sure that some of these swirly lines, like I'd want to make sure that this side looked like this side, and I'd probably do maybe on Photoshop kind of like a symmetry piece, just make sure that it like matches a little bit. Um, I might tweak some of the edges here just to make them nice and sharp so that it's not like curved. And I might add in some like runes around this circle piece manually. I might overpaint those in. But I think that this is a really nice base to work off of. And that's really what we're looking for, is how can we accelerate and get to that 90% line so that we can then create a really cool asset that fits the game. And this is a great start, right? This is cool. We've got a good thing to work off of. So now we have to ask the question of what's next, right? Okay, so that with a good mini map on the top right corner, now we need a hot bar at the bottom, okay? And so we're going to toy around and figure out what we're going to do for the hot bar. How are we going to keep it like in theme here? I am going to try quick bar design, and we're going to try an IP adapter. I'm going to drop this in here. I've had this question come up on past studio sessions. So if you are using the hosted Invoke product at your studio, all of these models are baked in for you for the most part from like an IP adapter control net perspective. If you are using the open source solution, we don't download all those files to your computer because there's a lot of files. Like you'd be downloading 100 gigabyte of all these models if we did that by default. So you choose which of these are useful in your process and download those manually. Models.invoke.ai is where you would go to download things like the IP adapters. If you don't see those in your toolbar, that would be something that you would, it would be something that you want to go download probably if you're using them. So I'm bringing in the IP adapter, maybe like 0.45. And the reason why is I want this kind of like vibe or style that I've landed on to influence the generation that we're going to generate for the hotbar. Now, I anticipate that we likely will still have this weird problem if we're not doing any type of control. This is why most people like tools like Invoke, is because you get a lot more control and you can end up generating stuff that's useful when you have it. But we're going to try it anyways. We're just going to see what we get. Maybe we get some good ideas from it. Maybe we get something that we can iterate on in the canvas. I'm going to make the aspect ratio 16:9, and I'm going to make it kind of like a long, thinner bar here. And we're going to give it a shot. See what we get. I'm going to answer some questions while we're generating here. Question for later is are there settings we need to worry about in here? Would steps or more styling affect the end result? The biggest setting during this process for like canvas and stuff like that is going to be denoising strength. You're going to need like a minimum number of steps, but I know that this is a controversial opinion, but steps and CFG scale, while they do matter, for me in my process, I find that more often than not, I don't need to change them from a baseline number of steps or CFG scale. I'm not like going around every single time I generate and doing all different variations of that, because more often than not, the thing that's going sideways in the generation process is not the number of steps. It's the prompt or like the context of what I'm generating on top of. And so that's, for people who aren't aware, scheduler, steps, CFG scale are all baked in here. You can see what I have set there. I typically just use this. This is my default setting for my model. In the 4.0 release, which is currently in a release candidate that some people in the community are testing, I encourage you to go test it if you haven't. You'll see a couple of options here. One of those is setting defaults for your model. So you can set a default scheduler, steps, and CFG scale. And anytime you hit that default settings, it'll reset those. I never change them from my defaults, or more often than not, I don't. Like, it's a good thing to toy around with if you're like really like in the fine tuning phase of something, but largely you're going to want to do bigger shifts like changing the base that you're doing the image to image process on top of, or changing your prompt entirely. So I'll get back to doing stuff here. This got some other questions. Would we be working individually, or would we refeed those assets we're creating to generate a bigger picture? I think from a practical standpoint, you're probably generating individual assets that are then going to be composed in the interface of the game, right? So the interface of the game is going to load up different assets like the toolbar, the hotbar. You probably need to create, if you're building like a PC game, different resolutions and stuff like that. So you're probably taking that asset and slicing and dicing it in the game engine itself so that it'll work. But you would want to create that asset, kind of create the base with the tool. And yes, CustomXL is just a slightly tweaked version of JuggernautXL. It's actually an older JuggernautXL. Some of the testing that I've done, I think the newer Juggernaut versions are like great for certain use cases, but they get worse on the things that we've been kind of fine tuning it for. But yeah, you can download Juggernaut on a couple of different websites. It's a pretty popular base model. So yeah, we've got an interesting base for this hot bar, like this quick bar type menu thing. I think we probably want this to be a little bit different in the sense that I don't think that this would be the exact format we'd want for the hotbar. Yeah, I think we've kind of like, I guess it really depends on like what type of bar we're creating. So maybe we like this, maybe take this as a base. But then what we're going to do is we're going to make this, it's like a health bar over on the left-hand side, right? We're probably going to make this like bigger, right? We might have like maybe a little bit of a brighter bloody color here because it's like the old school. One of my favorite games when I was a kid growing up was this game called Nox. And it's kind of like a Diablo-esque type game. And I don't know, for whatever reason, this like reminds me of that game. It's a good LAN time. This man is ancient. I am an old school gamer. Man, I'll tell you what, playing on like old school LAN, some of those games, oof, brings back memories. All right, so I'm going to zoom in on just this area. And I'm going to do health orb. I'm going to call that health orb, HP. There you go. And then I'm going to denoising strength down to like 0.55. And that way we're just kind of like focusing on this one piece. Shouldn't change the shape too much, but it should give us a nice like idea of how this would fit into that bar. And this is also an area that you probably wouldn't end up using this as like the final integrated asset, because your HP bar would need to be dynamic, right? You'd need it to be like varying based on how much HP you actually have. But it's good for concept, and it's good for like understanding what you would need to pull out and make dynamic. In this case, I think I want to do another iteration maybe on just the bar on the inside. And we'll probably increase that denoising strength a bit. I see a couple people calling out they miss LAN parties. I do too. I went to DreamHack earlier this year, and that was a little bit of breath of fresh air. It was fun. People are calling out that there's like some good concept art ideas here. I agree. That's like a cool idea. I don't think I'm gonna stick with it, but it's like an interesting symbol. We'll do. What I'm gonna do HP, and we'll do like red liquid, just to like really kind of emphasize that piece. Again, I do think that there, like some people have called out, there's some good things here that are good for ideas and good for like playing around with what this might look like. That I think is going to be our winner. Somebody said you're really getting what looked to me like excellent UI elements right off the bat. I think, I'll be candid, it feels a little lucky to me because again, I kind of mentioned I thought I'd be stumbling a little bit. I think it is turning out pretty well, but I also, like, again, I think I know a lot of like how to nudge it in the right direction, and I think we're doing a good job here. I'm going to keep that because I think that's like a nice, good concept piece. And then you could imagine, obviously, like taking this out and creating a bunch of different, levels there. Someone made a good joke of one man's luck is another man's seed. Yeah, it's also random chance, right? You never know. Question: do you generally queue up a bunch until you find one that could hit the jackpot, or is it generally small bursts like that and adjusting it as they come? Well, that's a good question. I mean, this is kind of a philosophical thing about how you're going to use these tools. What I think is useful when you're doing concepting, and especially when you have accelerated concepting. So, AI tooling is this kind of fundamental accelerator of getting from 0 to 90 on an idea. So the question that you have to ask as like a studio that is working in this way is like, previously we had a team and they could maybe get like 3 or 4 good concepts out in a certain amount of time, right? So we would get like 3 or 4 options. Well, when you were doing that, you had to like do some early prototypes and only spend the time fleshing out the concepts that like seemed like they had some good bones to them, right? Like you pick a few and then you put all your time in finishing those out. Now that we have like AI tooling, the question is, what does that do for us as a team? And I think a lot of people fear right now that this is just going to decrease the amount of time it takes, and that's it. We're just going to do the same 4 options we used to do, but we're just going to do them in 10 seconds, and then we're done. And the way that I would highly recommend using the tool is not solely for that purpose. Obviously, it's going to save time, but treat it as a way of getting more at-bats, more options for you to choose from. That will ultimately increase the quality of what you do because you now have more optionality. You have a better pool to pick from. And it's a good creative exercise to basically do some exploration, go down some path that seems inspirational, like, okay, this is a really cool idea, let's go down all the way down that path, but then pull back up and start that exploration over again. Kind of do this repeated pattern of going in and out and kind of finding these ideas. And then you've got like a nice set of options to pick from when you're going through and taking these out to finish it out. That's how I would recommend to think about it. As far as do I queue up a bunch, for the purposes of this video or this kind of session, I am mostly like doing a few and then going deep on it so that we can kind of go through that exploratory process of going deep. But typically what I would do is, I would probably like try to get a couple of seeds out, right? So I'm throwing a couple of ideas in, testing out how different prompts work. I'm getting kind of a library of potential options to explore. And then I'm picking a few of those to do this deep dive with. That makes sense. And that way you really have like a good basis to explore and come up with some concepts. So we've got our health bar on the left-hand side. I'm probably going to go to the right-hand side and do the same thing for our, maybe in this world. How about this? I'm going to put a challenge to the group. We're going to collectively like use the wisdom of the crowds. In this world, in this RPG world, it's not mana. It's not, we don't have a magic bar. It's something else. Like, what is that thing? What is the thing in this RPG world? Okay, someone said stamina, energy, insulin. Okay, I don't think we're using that one. Stamina's maybe good. Stamina's good. Rage is good. Although pure rage. Maybe that's good. Number of pet cats to sacrifice to the gods. Okay, That's also interesting. It's like your cat ammunition bar. I like the idea of rage, and the reason why I like it is because it means that we're going to have to figure out how to differ from this set of rage to something else, right? So we're going to need it to be slightly different. We're going to have to figure out how to do that. So I'll probably start with some orange and maybe steal some of these yellow pieces here if I can. It's more like a brown rather than yellow. I'm going to tweak that a little bit. And I'm going to show, like, when you're doing significant amounts of denoising, you don't have to get like super perfect with the specific stuff. You can kind of just suggest where things might be. So I'm just adding in some color variation. I'm just going to play around with this and show you because it's kind of fun. So I'm adding in some color variation here. I'm just going to, like mix it up a little bit. Just like mixing in some colors, kind of like putting it in. Even like do some black down at the bottom, right? Like adding in some shadow. And then I will do my denoising. Keep that up at 0.7. So this is Rage Orb, Rage Meter, Pure Adrenaline Energy Vibes. Just kind of throwing some words in there. And we will see what that gets us. Someone said slowly turning into Dragon Balls. Yeah, this is our Super Saiyan meter. Demonstrating how ancient I am once again. Someone asked a really good question. I'm curious how transparency would work. Could you use that to tint but keep details? Could you paint colored lighting? Yes, great call out. You can definitely do that. If you like the general idea of something but you want to recolor it, you can do so. And maybe I'll just use this as an example here just to showcase it. So let's say we like this, like someone would call it Dragon Ball electricity, right? It's like kind of like these vibes. Let's say we like that, but you know what? We decided this is like we're going pink. Rage is pink, right? Hey, we got pink background. We're going pink today, right? So we're going to change this to pink. I'm going to turn the transparency down, and I'm going to do it over there. And now I've got that kind of like pink highlight, but maybe I want to really like settle that in with some denoising. Well, I'm going to turn the denoising strength down to like 0.45, and we'll kind of reimagine that as pink rage. So again, if you have a lower denoising strength, it's going to keep a lot of those like core elements, but it will kind of like blend it in, if you will. It'll take the concept and kind of blur it together and do the diffusion piece so that you've got a nice asset. So we took that, and now we've got this like pink ball. Now, I don't love it personally. I think it needs a little bit more like of a glossy energy look. It's kind of just looks like a matte painting right now, but you can see that this is like the recoloring. So that hopefully like shows that you can recolor it, and this is how you would do it. In this case though, I'm going to take that, I'm going to mask it again, and I'm going to do liquid glossy rage orb. Up to 0.7. We might lose some of the color there, but we're hoping that we'll still get a little bit of pink. I could probably put that in the prompt term as well. But it's definitely distinct from our health orb over on the left-hand side. I think that's pretty cool. It did change the color a little bit, but it's coming in here. Yeah, so there's a cool element here, which is this like fire and brimstone thing on the inside. And I like this like element that has popped out. It's kind of like baked into it. It's pretty cool, right? The thing about this that I don't like, though, is that it doesn't really look like a meter of any sort. And so I'm going to kind of like take this and fill that in. And then I'm going to just mask this piece here. And how can we get this to be an orb? You know, it might be that this is not helping. So it might be pushing it more towards like creating those types of shapes. Increase orb here. Let's see if we can get that to tweak that. We'll see. So people are calling out their. Oh, this looks a little bit more orb-like. Oh, I've got an idea. This is pretty cool, right? Okay, so this is just concept, right? We've got this like orb thing down here. This might be, yeah, this might be one of those things where I'm liking this. Okay, so this is my idea. This is the concept here. This kind of looks like a meter, right? Looks like it's like filling up from bottom around. So instead of being a top to bottom rage orb, which would just be kind of like a little bit duplicative of this concept over here, it's not super interesting. In this, oops, just clicking all the wrong elements here. In this one, it fills up like this, it fills up this groove, and this orb gets brighter if you're enraged. So if it's like full, this thing's like glowing, throwing off all these energy things. And then as you use it, it kind of like chips down, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, I think I like that. We'll kind of leave that with that concept and yeah, spiral for more length. It can kind of spiral around. Yeah, I think we'll take that as the concept that we're leaving with. And obviously this would need some tuning. If you were to incorporate this into the UI, you'd have to like take this out and kind of like separate in parts and pieces and then build it out. But it's like a cool concept, and I think it's a good thing to toy around with. It looks cool from a distance, right? Like that looks pretty dope, in my humble opinion. Now we're going to see if we can just get some interesting action bar designs out of this. So I'm going to do some fun stuff. I'm just going to get maybe some of the colors. Get some of this like orange right there. And I am going to turn this up opacity-wise and create just a couple of like blocks for item, or not items, but abilities here. And those are a little bit off symmetrically or spacing wise, shape wise, but it's okay. It's okay. I'll let it reimagine it. Very generous. It's kind of doing Swiss cheese here. And this is more for like expediency. I think you'd probably take these icons out and do them one by one. Maybe we should do that since I think we've got some time, but I'm just going to show you some fun hacks that you can do to fill in the gaps if you've got something like this. So I think we've shown this before, where if you show like a map of different items or things like that on a sheet, it will just give you a bunch of ideas all at the same time. Similarly, we can do this for ability icons on the toolbar here. We might chunk all that out though. Let this be a big chunk that it reimagines. And we'll do activity, or action bar hotkey ability icons. Maybe we'll do this a little bit. Yeah, okay, we'll give that a shot. See what we get. May or may not be perfect, but we're gonna try it out. While we're doing that, we'll answer some questions. Do you ever do image to image stuff with no prompt or repaint something? Yes, that is definitely something I do. Sometimes do it directly on the canvas. Image to image is kind of like your original, Blessed Coolen is calling out. Image to image is you providing kind of a raw image prompt. I like our generation here. Image to image is kind of providing our like initial image image prompt, if you will, but it's mostly a pixel data. We kind of got an action bar. It generates. Someone's calling out that AI is trolling. It's true troll behavior. This is how you know AI is sentient. Somebody called out ability icons. I agree. I'm going to try upweighting our ability icons. Maybe we'll put text in our negative prompt. Discard that and give it another shot. Definitely think we have a high enough denoising strength, though. Someone also asked, it'd be cool if the info box said when you have control on supply. That's not a bad idea. It's pretty good. Okay, I think these might be a little bit generic. It's okay. It's okay. We can make them less generic. Yeah, they're kind of like, they're struggling there. Okay, so we've got like an attack bar and maybe some extra abilities over on this side. Maybe I'll zoom in and do this. Let's take these guys. We'll do primary attack, secondary attack, action bar. It's just, I'm getting like, this is not advisable. I do not advise doing what we're trying to do here. This is very much like me messing around with it. I think it's gonna, well, we'll see what we get here. Like I said, I think getting icons is better done by like doing them all at once, and I'll show you that next. But you know, I'm a glutton for punishment, and I'm a glutton for trying things out. So we're gonna try this. We might need to turn this up a little bit. I'm gonna queue up another one anyways. It's all a little bit glowy for me, for my taste. Okay, now we got these like bars. And that's what happens when you turn up denoising strength. We lose all control. We'll try another one anyways. And someone said it looks like a Death Knight's rune resources rather than action buttons. That it does. Okay, you know what? I am going to take this empty one. I think that like empty spot is actually a really good spot for it's a really good spot for placing things over it. Like I think that's like it's a good spot to put ability icons on top of. I actually like that. And maybe what I'm going to do is just make that the rest of it. Give up on my dreams here of making the ability icons in this, and instead just going to allow it to do this same thing here. Those out. Just generate that piece. Maybe I might do that. And then we'll have like a cool little piece together. Rage Spell Mage. Love it. Maybe this is like the ultimate ability status, right? So we've got primary attack, secondary attack, ultimate ability status, and then a bunch of other abilities. Rage Spell Mage. Dope, love it. Save that. Get that out. All right, so let's review. Started with this. Found our way to this using the canvas. Started with this and then turned it into this. I think we've got a really good upgrade here. Looks good so far. Now we need some ability icons. What we're probably going to want to do is do something like, let's see if we can get a good template for this on the canvas. So we will reset the size here to put this with white, and then I'm just going to use this box to create an icon in the middle, right? And we'll do, I'm just gonna let it go. This is something I love to do. It doesn't really work that well with Stable Diffusion. The way that Stable Diffusion works is it's like, it's not thinking about what you're saying. It's purely just like, what are these words? Like, what are some visual concepts that match this word? So if I put in something like, you know, March of Destruction as an ability icon, you know, what you would want to do is probably have like a visual concept come from the term March of Destruction. So you might throw this into a prompt expansion node or put it into something like an LLM. Say like, what are visual concepts under 20 words that I could use to describe or visualize March of Destruction? And it would throw out something like, you know, a crowd of soldiers glowing in the night, marching, blah, 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 something like that, right? And then you've got a much better like placeholder for that. But I'm going to try it anyways. March of Destruction, and we'll see what we get. Ability icon, UI element. I'll keep this just to see what we get, but I might have to take off that IP adapter. Someone said we might get a burning calendar set to March. It's possible. I might need to turn up the denoising strength on this too. Yeah, turn that up. So we'll turn this up to 0.95. Again, this is because we're providing very little visual information here. It's just like shape, and we're kind of like controlling the outside frame of it, but otherwise letting it reimagine everything in the center. Yeah, so we're gonna need to take off this IP adapter because it's turning that into elements. Maybe I'll take out some of this other stuff too. So the reason that 0.95 gets anything shape-wise is because when you have very strong whites or blacks, it significantly changes the shape of the noise that's happening. And that type of noise shaping is skewing all of the values of that noise edge down towards white and the center towards black. And so structurally, it's kind of working well. Yeah, so March of Destruction here, I wouldn't use this as an ability icon, this like weird troll thing that happened. We don't want that. Not good. So I'm going to discard. And maybe I'll even up this to 0.97 just to show you that it'll still work. We'll say an army of glowing knights marching in the night. Ability icon digital paint. Here we go. Yeah, it's a little bit too much of a painting in my mind, right, for an ability icon. It's not terrible, but it's like a little bit overwrought for an ability icon. So what I might do is I like part of this, right? I might take this little bit out, so I'm going to save the box region only. Basically, I'm going to take this out, that piece there. I'm going to go back to my base template here. Maybe I'll save this out so that I can use this for later if I want to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as an IP adapter. And I'll do it as plus IP adapter so I get more of that kind of like core structure and shape of everything. And it's going to have like more of a zoomed in look rather than this like landscape view. And then we'll get like an icon maybe that fits that. Yeah, you know, if I'm being very picky, and I am very picky, I probably still would want to tweak this a little bit more. It's like typically with ability icon design, you want it to be very easy to read. I don't know that this is like super easy to read from a distance. It's like kind of a little complicated. Maybe what I might do is like go in and edit out some of these details so that it's a little bit, yeah, it's busy for an icon, which somebody else is calling out. I agree. I think it's busy, which goes back again to readability. And so how do we solve for that? Well, I might come in and just take out some of the back with something like general color here. All right, so I'm just kind of coming in, fiddling around with this to give it a little bit less stuff. Maybe I'll come out and take out some of these people as well. It's still a little busy for me. So maybe I'm going to take out some of these middle guys too. Watch me paint. Watch me paint. Just roughly do this because we're going to green noise on top of this. So we'll just do like 3. Probably need to turn this down just a tad bit. 3.92. Might still be too. It might be too high. You might want to go down and do a variation, just 0.87, and maybe another one at 0.82. Yeah, that was too high. 0.77. We'll see. We'll do a couple of these. Would lowering the res and then increasing it back after the generation make it more generic or icon-y? Definitely could. Definitely make it more like pixelated. And you typically would have pretty low res for icons anyways. Although that's not really true. I mean, like typically you're going to do a high res image that just gets squatted down back into the icon spot. The thing that you want more than anything is just simplicity. Like someone said, you don't want it to be too busy, which is why we're trying to eliminate some of these details and have it be more like artistic rather than trying to like, you know, have all of this background stuff going on. So this one, I think that the one we're looking at here is 0.87. We've got another one queued up at 0.82 and then 0.77. These are all still a bit busy. So we might just do one down at 0.57. Give ourselves that option to iterate through this. The other piece here is, well, it might be fine. This is still a bit busy. Really want to go simpler. Yeah, someone's calling out you could do a rough sketch of the composition as well. It's definitely like a good idea. Maybe that's what we do for the last icon, is we start rather than with just a general shape and having it generate the image, we do a rough sketch of it with the colors, and that way it gives us a lot more control over that shape. It's a good idea. Okay, here we go. I'm going to cancel after this one because this is definitely on the lower end of what we're going to think. It's too low. It's too low. So somebody said they like this one. Would increase. Oh, there's a lot of comments here. Wants to generate too many knights because of army. That's probably true, which makes the icon busy. Maybe try with a group or 3. That's probably fair. We can tweak the prompt. Glowing knights marching in the night. We're probably also getting a lot of like emphasis on the multiple groups of people from this image, so we might decrease the strength of this. And maybe we'll take this and somebody had the idea, which I think is pretty cool. This gen is good. We just need a large center character, and then this is good to go. So maybe we'll just take this, like create a knight here. Turn up the denoising strength quite a bit. Close up of a knight in front of glowing knights marching in the night. Knight. Or you could, yeah, somebody said you could take this out in Photoshop and cut out a single knight and make that. Yeah, obviously. Like, depends on like what the easiest, quickest path is. If I were sharing my Photoshop screen, I probably would pull that out. I'm gonna leave this. I like this. I know it looks a little silly, but I'm gonna take it. It works. Yeah, we're gonna leave this guy. We like it. We'll take that icon. We'll fix it in post. So now we've got that icon. Got this random dude. Maybe his helmet's backwards. I don't really know, but we like this guy. He's like close up, and maybe at a distance when we. Someone's saying a VFX artist died somewhere when I said we'll fix it in post. Yeah, probably. We'll try a new icon. I think you get the idea on that one, as far as like where you could go with it. We are going to sketch inside this center, do some like a much more opinionated generation. So I'm going to create this like runish background, maybe with like something in the middle, you know, like darker spots towards the center. And then I'm going to do like an arrow. So we'll do boop. And it's like arrow shape at the top. And things there. Do some stuff at the end that's maybe a little bit more feathery. Right, so we got this like arrow icon, right? Take up our IP adapter. We don't need that, and we'll do a explosive arrow ability icon digital painting, and we're gonna try 0.8. Might be too high. Too high. Someone gave the name to our last generation of Darth helmet, which is appropriate. It's good. All right, so we got one. We'll try maybe another one at like 0.75 as well. So I think this one looks good. I just want to like try and get something a little bit more more to play around with. About that arrowhead. So that's a little bit more better. Yeah, the first one lost a lot of the subtle background, and again, that's because it's at a high denoising strength. And so this goes back to like, this may be a good concept to talk about. The more that you put in on the front end, the lower you are going to want your denoising strength to be. So basically, if you're solving for your shortcomings in your input as sketch, right? Like you're doing lower effort, you're going to want to put the denoising strength higher. At lower strengths, if you've done a lot of work and you want to maintain that, then you're going to want to lower the denoising strength so that it carries through. If I bring this down, I'll show you why I don't want to do too low in my generation. So this is the second highest. This one was the highest. This is at a 0.5. And this is another way that you can do it. You can take the 0.5 and just feed it back over and over on itself. And that's like one way that you can kind of keep it constrained, but do a couple of feedback loops. But see, it's kind of like not really where we wanted to go, right? So we'll probably take that up as 0.6, and I'll show you this idea of feedback. generations, which is I've got 0.6 now. And even though each time is not sufficient to get there, it's going to have a lot more of what I put in if I'm just kind of like doing this iterative loop at this strength rather than doing the big denoising loop all at once. So I'm kind of like, doing a couple of 0.6 generations, and it's keeping a lot of that like core idea that I had, but is flexing out around a little bit of the arrow itself. Obviously, the more I do this, the more I'm going to go away from my original. Still a useful way to play around with it. And the piece that I would probably do here, if you were making a game, I would get a couple of your ability icons like really polished, 20 or so, 10, 20. And then I would train Allura on that style, and I'd use that in further generations. That will help you maintain the aesthetic consistency as you continue to flesh out that icon set. And that's going to kind of be your trick, if you will. So we're going to maybe finish this up. We've got a minute or two. And people are making some jokes. Fun. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We'll wrap up that generation and then call it for the day. But you guys can see there's like a lot of really cool ways to play around with this and generate some assets at various points in the UI, UX of the game. A lot of this, again, I think you'd probably take out into Photoshop and polish before you put it into a game. But you get some good base things to work off of. So we've got our cool arrow coming in out now. Awesome. Great, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye.